Cold.
Meg.
I think it's gone.
Meg is not.
So COVID's on fire, I think.
Okay.
Switch.
Yes, yeah, no, I just said, works in magic.
Okay. Good evening, everyone.
Evening.
Welcome to the water quality meeting. You're being recorded, so everybody be nice. I would first ask for a motion to approve the September 4th minutes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of the September 4th meeting.
I will go second.
And
Yes.
do we have any discussion of them? Anything amiss of any sort? Or? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Our first order of business after that will be our chair of the WAC, Andrew Chapman, presenting a fund request. I think you all got it in an email, right?
Yeah.
I know that guy.
Good evening. Thank you for having me and putting me on the agenda on short notice. So this is a funding request for to test approximately 200 to 250 wells in the town center. The quality of the drinking water obtained from private wells in that area has been a concern for many years. And the WAC did testing in 2023, which further substantiates that concern. So this request is follow-up testing. The town board, I met with the town board earlier this week, and I received support for the testing program. But the town board has asked me to come here to request funding. I can explain the reason behind the program, what my memo does. I'm really not in a position to judge and argue as to whether it's a suitable expenditure for your fund, because I actually know very little about what's eligible for expenditure from your fund. I've just been suggested to come here and make this request, and following that direction, here I am. The concern about water quality in the center stems from the fact that you have a lot of homes and businesses in the center on fairly small lots. So the horizontal separation between wells and septics on those lots and from a well from a neighbor's septic is tighter than it is in areas where the development is less dense. Further, the varying age, design, and condition of the septic system serving the public buildings in the town center varies, and those buildings tend to have higher strength wastewater flows than homes, because there's not as much washing going on, and so forth. A lot of the concern is focused on nitrates, and in 2023, the WAC sponsored testing for nitrogen-related compounds and bacteria. While only 8 of the 169 wells tested came back non-potable for nitrates, 44% showed nitrates in excess of 5 milligrams per liter. And that is a level of nitrates that's substantially more than you would expect as a result of a naturally occurring background level. That's like 2 to 3. And 44% of the wells we tested came back at between 5 and 10. So they're potable for nitrates, but the concern is that the nitrate level is so much higher than the background level. And that suggests septic influence in the 44% of the wells, because there really is no other explanation. There's no industry, there's no intensive agriculture. The amount of fertilizing and so forth that goes on wouldn't explain it. So you've got naturally occurring that you would expect at 2 to 3, and you have 44% of your wells that are well up over that. Nitrogen doesn't travel, if that's right, the concern is that nitrogen does not travel from septic tanks alone. In that, the question is, what else is in that well water? If it actually is under the influence of septic, if 44% of the wells are under the influence of septic, what else is in that wastewater that's coming from those septic tanks? And is it at a concentration which renders those wells non-potable? And we really don't know the answer to that question. So again, the reason why we're recommending this testing program is you've got a history of concern around nitrates in the town center. We did testing in 2023, which showed 44% of the wells with nitrates substantially over the background level. The only good explanation for that is that those wells are under the influence of septic, and we simply don't know what else has traveled with those nitrates to those wells. This testing program is designed to determine the proportion of wells that are non-potable for any reason, all the contaminants that are used to judge potability, what contaminations are present, what contaminants, are present, and in what concentrations, and where that contamination is occurring. So this testing is focused on those three questions. The methodology is that basically Suffolk County Department of Health Services, their Bureau of Drinking Water, runs a private well testing program. They will do the testing. So they're going to interact with the property owners. When the tests come to get scheduled, they're going to go out and they're going to pull the samples, they're going to analyze the data, and they're going to produce the reports. Because we've got a town goal here, figuring out the questions that I laid out, we are going to decide what wells will be tested. So the town engineer and will sit with the WAC, and we will actually select wells to be tested throughout the area of concern. When we did the testing in 2023, we divided the area into 13 zones. And I want to show you a map. Greg has seen this map. This is on the WAC.
Looks familiar.
Okay, there you go. Two of them.
There are.
There you go. Okay, so when we did the testing in 2023, we divided the area into 13 zones. Those 13 zones are based on the understood flow of water from this center of the town, which is really the highest point in the aquifer on the island, out towards the salt water. And you can see the results here of in yellow and red. Those are in the little red-shaped pies are the number of wells, or the proportion of wells that are non-potable for nitrates. And the yellow is the proportion of wells that have this level up above what you would expect to be naturally occurring. And you'd say to yourself, gee, this tells us where the contamination is. But it really doesn't with a sufficient amount of certainty, because if you look at each zone has an N number, which is the number of tests. If you look carefully, look at zone 3 along the left border. Zone 3, the N number is only 3. So that means one well tested at elevated nitrates, and the other two didn't. But that's not a big enough sample in zone 3 to really tell us what's going on in zone 3. And same thing for some of the other zones, even zone 7 just below is 10. Zone 1 up at the top is 5. So we need to design the test So we get more tests in each one of the zones. The way we did it this way was we just had people, we just had people sign up. And so we didn't get the zonal dispersion that we wanted. So I plan to sit with a town engineer with a street map, property map, with the zone boundaries on it, and go through and randomly select, say, 20 wells in each zone, because there are 12 or 13 zones here, times 20, 240, to select each one of the, to select 20 properties in each zone. Then we'll call or contact the property owner and see if they want to participate. If they don't want to participate, we'll select another one nearby so we can affect the necessary geographic dispersion so that we get statistically valid results by zone. We will then ask the participating property owner, it's voluntary, to fill out the town form, or the county form, and to attach a check for $100. And we will collect all that, get it to the county. The county's got its own reasons to want to get checks from individual property owners, which has to do with their procurement and program management. What we would then do is, if this funding is authorized, once we are certain, the county tells us that a test has been pulled and has been analyzed, they'll give us the address. They won't give us the results, but they'll give us the address and we'll send the property owner a check for $100. So their cost is zero. It's important, we think, for the property owners to know that their specific test results are not coming into town hall, so that no one can FOIA the results and find that information out. So what we will get back, the town, is we will get back each one of the tests with identified by zone, but not by property address or property owner. The participating property owner will get their own test results back. So they will know what's going on with their well, they will get a free test, and we will get the zonal information so that we can figure out where the contamination is and the percentage of wells that are non-potable, again, by zone. So that's how we plan to run it. It's a bit complicated, it's a bit cumbersome, particularly this, where the property owner has to pay the $100, we have to pay it back, and so forth. We've been through that with the county, there's no way around that. So what we think we'll do is we'll start with a couple of zones, see how it all goes, see what kind of response we get from the property owners, see what kind of results we're getting, making sure that the information that we're getting back actually allows us to statistically reach statistically valid conclusions about what's going on in the zones we try. And then we'll progress through the rest of the program. It'll probably take us a year or two to work all the way through the program, which may soften the funding request a bit. We may, we've requested $25,000, but it might be 12 and a half and 12 and a half. But we haven't quite figured all that out yet. So, but that's the basic approach. Now, the larger question, I think, which has come to us, which the town board asked, is, what does success look like? Where are we going with this? And why are we doing this? Well, first, there is reason to be concerned about the quality of the water that people are getting from their private wells in the center of the island. And that strikes us as a concern, as a public health concern, and a legitimate concern in the towns. So we are going to, through this testing program, we're going to get some pretty good answers to that question. Now, let's say we get back that substantially all of the wells are potable. There may be some background contamination, this and that in there, but it all meets public health standards, it all meets the standards of the US EPA, the state of New York, and so forth. Substantially all the wells are potable. There might be a few that are non-potable, deal with those individually. tell everybody what's going on. That's where we end up. That's where we end up. And anybody who talks about, hey, there's a water quality issue in the center, well, actually, no, there isn't. Because we did some pretty darn expensive testing. We tested like 50, we would have tested like 50% of the wells. And they came back and they were fine. So let's say we get the test results back, and we've got substantial number of the wells that are non-potable, but they're scattered all over the place. There are really no concentrations of them. So then the recommendation would probably be something like, look, if you're in this area, get your well tested. You ought to get it tested anyway, but based on these results we just got back, make sure you get your well tested and follow the recommendations that kind of flow from that test. So you may need a whole house system, you may need a RO system under your sink, whatever. You might want to not do any of that and drink bottled water, but you ought to know. And that would probably be where this would go. If the results come back where you've got concentrations of contamination, where a substantial number of the wells are non-potable and they're concentrated in particular areas, I think then the WAC would come back to the town with some alternatives. One alternative would be private well treatment. This is kind of what it looks like. This is kind of what it costs. I did an analysis last year that compared private well treatment over 20 years to public water through the Suffolk County Water Authority. Costs were frankly not that different. And then we would probably also come back with a public water option, and that would be costed out. And there's also the do nothing option. And the community might say, look, it's always been like this. I really don't care. People can buy bottled water if they're worried about it. We spend too much time in America and too much money in America trying to drive risk to zero. Let's just not worry about this. That might be the community answer that would support the do nothing option. And so, okay, then the recommendation would be, all right, we're not going to do anything now, but let's look at it again in 5 years. So I don't want to get locked into particular solutions or recommendations because we haven't seen the data. But my overall view of this is that this is a concern that's been talked about for years. This is a way of actually putting some facts around that concern in a rigorous way, using a very cost-effective program that the county's program, and $100 a test for 250 contaminants is it's a very, very low price. And so this will inform that debate. It will inform the public, and it will inform the decision-making that we do in response to the data that we get back. So that's why the WAC believes that this is it supports this testing program. And now I'm in the process of trying to get the budget authority to actually get it done. So that's happy to take any questions.
So initially, the testing that we funded in 2023 was just nitrates, essentially. Yes. This is the whole, the best buy for the buck, is the Suffolk County
Yes.
Health Department water test.
Yes.
So we'll know if it's PFAS or pharmaceuticals or whatever.
That's right. And we're going to compare those results, not to zero, but we're going to compare those results to the US EPA and New York State drinking water standards. Right. That's for us what defines safe water to drink, those standards.
And then individuals could say, they could be more cautious and say, well, now that there's anything in here, I'm not going to drink it.
Correct.
So at least they'll know that.
Yes. The participants in the test will get their results, so they can put an RO assist system in underneath their sink if they choose to. the people who who aren't selected, who don't participate, they'll know what the results are in theirs. If they live in a zone, they'll know what,
Their neighbor has, maybe.
the 20 wells in their zone, how they showed up. So they'll have some information that they don't have now.
Maybe it would give them a little more impetus to get a test.
Right.
Well, they don't really know what their neighbor has because nobody knows which wells are being tested.
Well, but they know if a zone turns out like lights up red, let's say, whatever you want, you know that you live in the zone and you know that whatever wells were tested, there's something wrong.
I agree, but we have these zones that we know that the nitrates are above what they should be, and nobody's done anything about it. We haven't seen any increase for IA systems to be put in or anything. And because people say, well, we don't know if it's our well or not, or, my drinking water is perfectly fine. That's
The people who participated in the last test voluntarily,
They know.
they know that they got the red.
Have they
and
done
no-
it?
Well, we don't know if they,
We don't know.
we don't know if they bought treatment services from Greg Nissen. We don't know that. So maybe they did, but they didn't, we do know that they didn't come here to get an IA system. To the best of my understanding is.
that.
Well, we know that there haven't been
No,
that
just-
many
just
since-
By application, I think we know it. I'm willing to be corrected, but I don't know that we gave any
there was
IA
no
systems in the center.
influx of IA systems in the center.
right.
Okay, can I comment on the IA systems for a minute?
Yeah,
They're important to aquifer water quality over the long term.
yeah.
I'm not sure they would quickly address
They wouldn't.
aquifer contamination in the short term.
Good point.
So this is about drinking water, what people are drinking or what they're obtaining from their wells now. Which is different than,
And trying to fix it long term.
correct, it's important to fix it long-term. If you're in a hole, what's the first thing you do? Stop digging, okay? So it's important to fix it long-term for all kinds of reasons, in terms of the aquifer, in terms of what goes out in the days and so forth. But from the standpoint of drinking water, this is a functional test. What are people drinking now?
Right.
That's what this gets at.
So Greg did the last testing.
Yeah.
Did anybody ask him if anybody that was tested, because he knows who was tested, did they buy or?
I don't know.
I don't think anybody knows. That's my
Right.
point.
Well,
Is
that's,
that,
yeah, well, yeah, you're right, we didn't, I don't think we got any requests based on the testing for the IA systems, and you're right, it's not an immediate solution. Putting a filter on your sink tomorrow morning maybe fixes.
Yeah, and the concern is, no, we won't know exactly which wells are tested.
But we have a lot more data.
We'll have a better sense of where the contamination is, if there is. But if we require each person to submit their results with their property, we're afraid people will not participate because they won't want that information in the public domain and subject to FOIA.
Okay.
So that's the balancing act we're dealing with.
Will you encourage them to share their,
We do.
right? okay,
We
so-
do, and we get some people submit their tests and other people don't.
So if I have had my water tested and it's fine, but I don't live in the center. If I have a test and I pop up either red or yellow, Suffolk County knows that.
Yes,
Okay, so if I'm red, that means I'm over 10.
on nitrates. You might be red for some other reason.
Right, okay. But let's just stick with the, whatever. If I'm red,
You're red, non-potable.
do they come and shut my water off?
No,
Do they come and deliver bottles of water to me?
no. It's up to you to solve the problem.
Okay.
I think what Andrew's getting at is, at least we'll you'll know perhaps where the areas are more precisely than,
Now, Right.
And the options could be do nothing or, see if there's any disposition to, if it's a concentrated thing, whether there would be a public water sentiment to, to have another
Right.
municipal water supply on Shelter Island. I mean, I guess, ignoring it is not going to help anything. I mean, eventually, these things do come to light because people, when they transfer the property, nobody's going to transfer without a water test. So eventually, you can try to ignore it, but, it's eventually going to come, and be a problem, if there is a problem. And there may not be one.
There may not be. There's an enormous amount of noise about the issue, but there's very little data.
Well,
so there is all this noise, and if you go to any candidate night, water, 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 water. People pay attention to this. People read the reporter. People understand it. Another interesting question would be, is anybody getting their water tested voluntarily for the $100?
A lot of people I know have done it. I mean, maybe it's the choir, but, a lot of people, it's the best deal you're going to get.
Absolutely.
Even if you have to pay the $100,
Which I did.
well, I did, more than once.
I will. But my only concern is our business is to get IA systems put in to the ground. And
Among other things, there are many other things that we do besides that. I mean, it might be a focus that we do have, but our mandate is much more broad than that.
I agree with that.
I agree with that as well. But
The focus is IA systems, but not the scope.
yeah, there were the 7 categories that when we started all this, 10 odd years ago.
And now that's been broadened.
Well, I don't know if it's been broadened, is that there's a group that is supposed to,
Well, if there's a question, but I
if
mean.
it's not a normal,
I think there's less of a constraint on things that get funded now.
there may be, I don't know what those characteristic projects are, though. I don't know if you do, maybe.
Specifically, I can't say, but from the sound of that legislation that was passed, it sounded like the constraints were relieved to some degree.
Yeah, potentially, depending on what, the group, I mean, there's supposed to be a group, maybe
I know, that'll be a question for later
But
on.
that's a way off in the future.
no, they were supposed to be in operation 90 days after the day that,
Well, they're not.
yeah, that was a year ago now.
Because I go to those meetings, so.
It was a year ago.
Yeah. But it took a long time to get the MOU between the towns done and all of that, so.
Well, the one thing that, and I hadn't heard that you and somebody from either QA or the town engineer, whichever, would be selecting properties to evaluate.
So I have spoken with Joe, and we agree that we need to do it by zone, so we get enough tests in each zone to get statistically valid results by zone.
Yeah.
And I said, Joe, how are we gonna do this? Sit down with a map in front of us and just, as randomly as possible, pick properties? And I don't know who lives in all these places. So to me, I just want a dispersion in the zones.
Yes, then that,
And someone's gonna get, someone would get chosen and their neighbor might not get chosen.
well, I mean, but my feelings, my feelings about the way the zone worked out, because I think when all was said and done, you know, as we spoke a couple minutes ago, you know, we really don't, you know, we got results last time, and the goal was and if I recall, we paid for that testing.
We did.
But
But
the idea was is that we were, yeah,
it was more random. What's the difference here is that, you know, you're going to make sure each zone is populated enough to get a result.
Right.
Where the other one was, you know, like in zone 3, there were like, 3 people or whatever, you know, that did
Yeah,
it.
because they all just volunteered.
They just did it,
We
you
didn't
know,
try to
and
control it by
there was
zone.
no control.
Right.
that's a really helpful thing, I think, the selection of houses, because, the selection of properties, again, and if it's just a hash mark pattern, although the zone may be 1,000 feet by 1,000 feet square, and I'm sure it'd be bigger than that, if you selected efficiently, you can actually take that and get a much clearer view of it. And at our last meeting, when we talked, Meg indicated certainly that, you know, the reason for these 2 zones which run out was to make it look more triangular,
Yeah, and
which I thought, I wouldn't say that again.
well, my memo says that we are probably going to adjust the boundaries of the zones.
Yes.
And we probably will drop a zone. If you look in the lower center.
The blue, all blue?
Yeah, in zone,
Well, there's Banana Creek and Fresh Pond in
Zone
there.
7?
Yeah.
No, it's not zone 7, it's zone.
13, no,
It's
it's
this
1.
Down here.
I can't really.
It's on the far side of the creek.
1 or 7,
No,
it's 1.
So we might drop that because, so I need to sit with the town engineer and work through that. But the intent is, again, to get statistically valid results by zone. We got statistically valid results for the whole triangle, but we did not get them by zone.
Yes. You know, as, you know, the zone, it's hard to see that, isn't it?
I can't.
Well, we know what you're talking
Yeah.
about.
The timing on this, is there a concept of timing?
Sounds like there isn't, this is going to
You
take long.
know, it's October.
I'm trying to get the funding authority.
Yeah.
I'm told that it doesn't really matter seasonally by Suffolk County. It doesn't really matter seasonally when we do this.
No, but it matters drought-wise. Because the concentrations will change as there's drought. You will see a higher elevation of whatever, whether it's pharmaceuticals, nitrates, potassium, whatever. You know,
Okay.
if there's less water, the things are concentrated. Water is a universal solvent.
Um,
Solution to pollution is
Well, look,
dilution.
I'm trying to get the funding first. Then we will get into the details of it. We have had a couple of meetings with Suffolk County about this. They will like the work spread out a bit. 250 tests represents 50% of their workload in a year. So they'll be quite happy to hear that we're going to spread it out. But that's where it stands.
On the approval, you said that 200 to 250, but it would be a smaller number over a couple of years.
Yes.
Is that a third, or what?
It's
hard to say, right?
I want to do it over 2 years.
But does it matter to us?
I mean, so
Do we allocate the money all at once, or do we allocate it as it gets used?
I would say you would allocate it, you know, up to a certain amount, and as they use it, they would draw it down. That's my opinion.
I would like to know, though, that we have funding in place to do the full.
Yes, that's my point.
Right.
We might spend it
And, you know, and
over
you
a couple
come
of fiscal
in
years, but
request.
I don't want to do 50 or 100 tests and then be told, no, but we don't, it's
Right.
told to stop.
Right.
The whole point is,
To calculate the zones.
Right.
You know, if this were to be voted on and approved, I would want it that way, I think, and then you would submit not each one every time you got a test, because the town with guys in no offices would kill us. But you'd get a glut of them and submit the payment.
Well, our procedure on this, I guess, with this amount of money is that it would have to go, a recommendation from us saying, town board, we think that this is.
That'd be a public hearing.
Right, and there'd have to be a public hearing. So I guess one of the reasons discussing timing is that the timing is probably 3 months out before you could get a positive, yes, the town board would say yes.
Is it that long?
And I just
Amber,
would,
any comment about that?
We would put it in, as we put this forward, October 20th is when we would set the public hearing, and then November 14th is the next town board meeting. After that.
but that unfortunately brings us to that point of the committee that, they ripped the categories out of the state legislation. And now is that committee that would review that in existence yet?
And Gordon just asked that question a couple minutes ago. I'm going to Easton Supervisors and Mayors meeting next week, and so we should be getting an update on that. The proposed timeline was that in October we'd have it up and running. East Hampton is taking the lead on getting everything pulled together, so.
Is that a public meeting or is that
No.
a committee? It's not a public meeting.
The Easton Supervisors and Mayors is not a public meeting.
Okay. I think that, before I would, from my standpoint, before I would recommend that we should do this, I'd like to know that committee says that it's legitimate that we use the money this way.
Do you think that
except
they
we've
would
already set a
change?
precedent.
Yeah.
October seems unlikely, but maybe it
I mean,
happens.
we haven't gotten into, nobody took us to task or put us up against the wall when we did it before.
If you remember.
I didn't agree with it, but
Well, no, ultimately I did, but the reason that we were doing it at that time, we called it, it was an attempt to get people to want to come in and, so there was a stewardship of the fund to try and get more IA units out of that, and that's the way we designated the money last time.
If you think, I guess I don't know.
In
The
hindsight.
same thing would apply now, because we're gonna have a greater statistical number, something could be random, somebody could have poured, well, I guess if we only tested for nitrate, nobody poured nitrate down the drains. Well, they could have had a bag of fertilizer that leaked into their well, but, other than that, the goal would still be to encourage people to take this longer-term approach of putting IA systems in.
Look, why don't we just say this, that we appropriate the 25,000 or 24,000, whatever the heck it is, unless the new committee says that that's not within our scope of work. How about that?
That would resolve that issue, certainly. That would be, there's a couple things that we talked about this the other night or the other day at the WAC, and, the plan to rethink the zones, to not just use these zones, which, those couple of zones that are like half the island wide in length. The fact that those changes are being made, it'd be nice to see them before they get executed, obviously. But
our purview isn't to actually fiddle with the zones.
Correct.
That's what Andrew and Joe and you guys are going to do on the WAC.
I'll let you know.
We're not going to, I guess we could suggest things, but, we're not doing that.
I think that it was pretty clear, the zones that I thought were problematic, and it sounds like the concept of not just saying you're in a zone coming, the way that we did it last time was just
Random.
who walk in.
Do it.
If you've got, a zone that's patterned out to, 10 different sub zones, if you will. Is that a word, a subzone? that would help clarify the impact of outflow from the higher levels to the lowers, to the shoreline areas. Because as you said, as Betty said, the seasonality of how much water is falling from the sky and pushing out and diluting the water, that's something that we would perhaps see if we had a closer view of where the water is. Not perfect, as Joe indicated, and I'm not saying that we'd be able to, from a mile high say, oh, that's the one that's got more nitrates.
Interesting to go to the health department and ask them that question.
Which,
About drought conditions and, in their testing modality, do they account for that, or do they think it doesn't matter?
the indication we got on seasonality was it really didn't matter. If if your well's non-potable, it's gonna show up, really doesn't.
Anyway,
Anyway. Because, okay, you get let's say you get a lot of rainfall in the spring. Fine, you've also got a lot of evapotranspiration going on. So how much of that water is actually getting into the aquifer? Because a lot of it's getting taken up by the vegetation. All kinds of different factors like that.
right, so I mean,
So.
That's what this chart does, though.
Will there be some attempt not to identify a property, but I think that's what Greg was saying, like subzones? And then,
What we'll end up doing is we'll take a zone, we'll look at the street layout and the properties in that zone, and we'll try to randomly select to get as broad a dispersion of the tests as we can.
but within the zone, when you get the results back, you won't know which area within the zone.
That's correct.
And so you may give a,
However, I will say that we won't know it in writing. We will be invited to have a conversation with the county, who will know which properties got tested and where they are. So we may get some color on pockets of problems with individual zones, but that'll be in a conversation. And the reason is, we don't want that information because of the privacy issues.
but you're selecting the properties, and if, they've all agreed, you know that if there's a problem in the zone, it doesn't matter whose it was,
Yeah, now when we select the properties, we're going to want to know within the zone, if all of the habitation in a zone is in one corner of a zone, we're going to want to get a representative sample in that corner. As opposed to trying to get it all over the zone, because there are not a lot of people, there might, in that circumstance, there aren't a lot of people who live over there.
Right.
So, I think, we're getting down into the weeds.
Yes.
Yes.
About the administration of the
Right.
program.
Right.
The effort will be to select the properties so that we get a statistically valid sample for the zones. Now, let's say the answers come back and we got a problem in a particular zone. We may want to do some more testing, or the county may, at their cost, may want to do some more testing in that zone. Don't really know. When we did the nitrate testing, we were zeroing in on nitrates.
Right.
But the results came back with elevated nitrates relative to the background level, but not big problems on potability. But those results of the elevated nitrates relative to the background level raises another question, which is, nitrates don't travel alone. What else is in those wells? And is it rendering those wells non-potable? That's the relevant question. We didn't anticipate that question when we designed the first study. But that question's before us now, based on the results we got back. So sometimes the data leads you to a place where you're not anticipating. That's the case here.
Right.
Wish I could foresee all that, but I can't.
No, of course, yeah.
That's what research is all about.
Correct. And at some point, you learn enough so that you're comfortable with decision-making, but you're never going to know everything. But right now, we certainly don't know enough to conclude that there's a problem and what it is. We don't know enough. We suspect there's a problem, and we do not have it defined. And we need to define it better than we have now.
It's not only
Yeah.
that, statistically, you don't have the numbers.
Right.
Right.
So to make conclusions with
With no numbers.
no numbers
Yeah.
is.
Statistically, we've got pretty good numbers for the whole triangle.
Right.
We
But,
tested
but
roughly-
certain areas, yes.
About 160 people.
We tested, that's not a trivial number, and it was roughly 30% of all the wells. Okay, so that's not trivial when you look at the whole triangle. But looking at the whole triangle isn't enough to design a solution to that problem. You've really got to understand it in the zones.
Amber, do you have any feeling for how many questions are pending before this non-convened board or committee?
I don't know what the other.
I know we have two.
I now have 3. I've got, can we pay for water testing with WQI money? Is conversion of commercial property to residential considered growth?
I didn't include our current one, but yeah.
Okay, and then, yes, and then is a vacant property that's already subdivided considered growth? So those are the 3 questions that I had to bring to them.
But I mean, I'm just wondering, when they finally do get underway, is there like a zillion other questions that other people have had? So and this relates to your timing, if we're qualifying this approval based on
Look,
the committee who hasn't made any decisions yet.
We're not in their room.
Right.
We're in your room.
Okay,
Okay, so my question for you is, do you endorse this? If you endorse it, then your endorsement of it is obviously subject to this higher authority. Okay,
not necessarily. I mean, we could, the town board could approve it and say, we feel that it is within the purview of the mandate to go ahead and do it. Obviously, a couple of us seem to have, a desire to get more qualification. Not I necessarily, but.
okay, well, I'd like their endorsement. I'm asking for it.
Okay.
And wherever that takes the decision-making process, it takes it, but. and
Would
maybe
somebody
you-
like to,
Maybe you want to discuss it amongst yourselves, or maybe you want to talk about it and then have it in
I
the
mean,
next meeting.
I'm going to go for, is there more discussion or more questions that we feel that we would want to ask Andrew? And do we feel comfortable discussing our feelings and, with Andrew present? I mean, personally, I don't have a problem.
So we could let him sit down if he wishes to.
You could sit down if you wanted to, but
If you wish.
you need to be available for questions, if there were any. I think.
Personally, I feel it's a worthy cause, and 25,000 isn't an exorbitant amount of money. So my vote is to approve the 25,000.
Well, we're not at a vote yet because we have to make a motion, but, I mean, are there any further questions for
No,
Andrew?
I don't have
or
any further
do we
questions.
want to discuss among ourselves more?
I mean, it is well thought out, I would say. It makes sense to get more data and maybe quiet the discussion, because people make a lot of noise sometimes about nothing. Obviously, there are hot points. There's a couple of red, it could be one well. Well, in fact, in most cases, it's probably one well. But if a couple of the zones are near each other, and it might be cross zone, yeah. So the unfortunate thing is not really knowing the locations. So designing a solution or making recommendations to the county, I suppose, do that if somebody has a hot spot. The county will say, you need to fix this, you know, we advise you to fix it. We can't force them to fix it.
It's a situation where the FOIA
Yeah.
procedure actually frustrates us trying to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah.
But I don't know how to deal with it other than to do it by zone and balance, get the zone small enough so that you can actually see what's going
Let
on.
me ask another question. Is the county testing FOIA-able?
That was that was the question I was gonna.
Their rule is they'll tell the street, they'll tell the FOIA requester the street, but not the number.
Okay. What's their rationale about? Why
I
not?
don't know, but that's
I
their,
mean, is there a privacy document like in medicine that,
I don't know.
I was thinking that, why
That's
couldn't you
their rule.
foil the county?
That's their rule. That's why when we get the reports back, we'll get them back by zone. And we'll do our analysis of the data by zone. They'll keep the reports and they'll send the individual reports to the property owners. And if anybody calls them and says, did you do that property? I'll say, well, we can tell you what we did on that street, but we're not going to tell you that property.
Has there been discussion with Suffolk County that they would go and tell people that they have to do something if they have elevated concerned levels of whatever?
Suffolk County Department of Health will inform you as to your results and will make a recommendation, but they can't require it. Because you're responsible.
Yeah.
The property owner is responsible for the well.
You can lead the horse to water, but you can't stop them from drinking.
Right.
It's the huge difference between a public water supply and a private water supply. It's, you know, the
Oh, yeah.
EPA can say, that's not a legal well anymore, you better figure something else out. Whereas with our private wells,
Anyway, are we ready to make a motion on this?
Sure. I motion to appropriate the WAC, the $25,000, pending that this is within our purview by the new committee
Or the town board?
or the town board.
Seconded.
you're saying, or the town
Or
board?
if the town board feels that it's within our purview to do this without this other entity,
Okay,
then, I mean, we've done it before. President, it's not a precedent-setting thing, so. Okay, so you seconded it? All in favor?
just noting that, we made discussions about the layout of the tests, and that the zones will be modified to,
Well, he's already said that.
yeah. We'll just,
In the proposal.
part of our thinking as well in saying, we recommend that the WEC
Based on,
suggest to the town board to do that at some.
right, well, based on our unhappiness with the first test, we understand that that's going to be modified
Yeah.
based on this proposal.
Right, all right, that's fine then.
So all in favor?
Uh,
Okay, and
Thank you, Andrew.
And sales, when you get the ticket, get out of the room. Thank you very much.
You're
I
welcome.
really appreciate it. Really appreciate your support.
Thank you, Andrew. The next item is one that I will have to recuse myself on. It has to do with my daughter's reimbursement.
Enough to vote on it?
Yeah, you have three.
Three's a,
Betty had.
Wasn't I a young man when we talked about this?
Yes, you.
yeah, well,
Your beard was half the length it is now. But Betty, in full disclosure, did ask me a few questions about it prior to the meeting.
just to bring me up to date as to the original application and what was on there, and also kind of a timeline, because this has been since 2018. There's two buildings on the property, the main building, which has four bedrooms, and the additional building, which has two. Full-time, there's 7 people living there. I don't know how many part-time. The nitrate level using the old formula back when was 12, so it's kilograms, the reduction would be 12 kilograms per year, which isn't anything to sneeze at. This is under the old appropriations by us. So the base, there's nothing for the well, even though they had to put a well on, and they did not put a PSD in there. So I vote to approve. Oh, if you want to look at the, I think it was, did everybody receive the allocations? They put in a Fuji 7, which is adequate for the number of people living there. The total cost was $60,795. Everything seems to be legit as the expenses that there's for Sherman Engineering, sand and gravel, survey, water test, the well drilling, and the plumber. And that all totaled 60,000. They got 10,000 from Suffolk County, 10,000 from the state. So that leaves $40,795 left. So the most we can give them is 15,000, and I vote to approve the 15,000 for the system.
How does it happen that it's 2018 and?
Yes. Well, I guess that,
Well,
yeah,
well was the issue in getting the
getting the well,
the well to have the proper reading, and
been tested a number of
and
times
they had to
and,
raise the well point to
right,
get to clean water.
And what was the contaminant, salt?
I don't know.
I don't know either. That would have
But
been.
it took a long time to get the well
Right.
approved, which is what held this thing up.
And there's been a little procrastination because there's been babies that have been
Oh, there you go.
had in the process. So yeah.
When we started this project, the baby,
Wasn't even a twinkle.
yeah, now the baby's,
Now there's poop in the diaper that needs to be taken care of. I don't know. But anyways, I move to approve 15,000.
I second it.
so we didn't, so then now we can talk more about it. Yeah, we should take a look at that. You want to take a quick look at
At the
this?
what?
At the information,
Expenditures?
the expense sheet.
Here.
I mean, since it's taken,
Well, since there's $25,000 that isn't covered, I think I'm sure there's more than marginal.
And it doesn't appear that they're asking for anything outside of our,
Correct.
you know.
We
like-
would pay for a well.
Right,
We would pay for the plumber.
right.
So,
The survey,
yeah. Well,
sand and gravel,
right.
everything.
sand and gravel was 43.
Big system, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what the topography was and the test results, the well, you know, the test hole.
Yeah, the North Shore was an additional $6,400, and Teodoro Plumbing. Does he say what that was about?
Huh?
Well, they hook up the system up
Yeah,
and hook up the well.
I'm surprised the electrician's not on there.
Would have been more than.
Yeah. But, I mean, that's what I'm saying. The 15,000 is a drop in a bucket compared to the 40,000 that
Okay, did they get, oh, yes, they
they
got
have
the
all
10
the
and 10.
stamps, they have, you know, all the surveys. All
I'm
the,
in favor of it.
all the,
I'm big folks, the boys.
you want to look at the original file?
No, this is fine.
Do I have to sign that, the sheet?
I think
It's not in that pile, is it?
the sheet that you were reading, yeah.
Yeah, it is.
I'll make sure.
It's pretty much in the center of the island, isn't it?
It's South Ferry Road. So yeah, it's up by, I think it's kind of
Yeah, it's
across
not-
from
Street.
Vine Street, yeah. There's this part too, I guess I didn't give you this part, what did I? What, let me see that one, that could have been mine, and this is all the checks and everything, no. it's just-
Okay, yes, I think it's certainly no question that,
The charges are legit.
that charges are,
Right, and they have
charges
the
were made and
paperwork.
charges were paid,
Right, and the paperwork is there, and
right?
I agree.
It's,
Yes,
you know,
It's kind of tricky because there's a lag of time.
yeah. Paid 5/16/20 for North Shore Well.
Yeah, because that was what held everything up, was the well.
20, you know, that was 5
Oh,
years.
28, yeah, I know. That would be a James question. I don't know, unless, Amber, were you looking through that, or?
Yeah, I was looking at, so what's the question?
Okay, yeah, I see, now he's got the well registry is in here,
Yeah,
sorry, registry.
It
just-
looks like it's a 7/7.
yes, it is.
Computer system, and it's also going to two, there's an accessory.
Yeah, the accessory building, yes.
and greenhouse.
Right.
So.
But my only concern is the length of time and making sure that they said that they, after 2 years, you have to renew your application, all that was done.
Yeah, I mean, Jess has been working on reaching out to anyone who's got an
Uh-huh.
outstanding rebate to, like, clear out the ones that are never gonna.
Okay.
This one we've known over the years that they.
Okay. So there's nothing that you see looks suspicious then?
No.
Okay.
You know, certainly all of the expenses are there, and it is the 15 is just under half of the outstanding fee.
Right.
That was not paid by the county and the state.
Right.
So I've completely,
You agree?
yeah, I agree with your opinion.
All in favor of the motion for the 15,000?
Aye.
Aye.
Just for information purposes, because I do try and track the total cost of systems, then the last highest, most expensive installation was 58,000. So this one just took the cake. There was another one for 57,000 at one point.
Is most of that due to the size of the system, or?
Well, this system was down in this, like, it was down in the hollow, you want to, and getting to it, and PD had a whole bunch of sand, this, that, and the other.
Right.
It was like, it was a Mr. Blandings type problem.
On the bright side,
We approve.
you'll be receiving, inflation, the value, the inflation
Right.
clause.
Next item is another older application, approved in 2020. Tom Haashagen, West Neck Road. He's under, I think, the $15,000 grant as well. And he's now in the process of finally finishing it. He thought he was going to be done, but then the well thing reared its head. So he's a ways away from getting a green stamp. So we'll hear from him eventually. I think you guys all got this thing from, there was an outreach by a guy named Derek
That's in
Weitelman.
Maryland, was it?
Yeah, he's a doctoral candidate. I said he was a doctor, but he's not doctor yet. I jumped the gun on it.
PhD.
He's a PhD candidate at the University of Maryland. And he has, he's more of on the economic side of the whole thing, but
What's,
economic.
oh, okay.
They have, obviously University of Connecticut in conjunction with the Long Island Sound Society or Association or something like that, or outreach. It's not the Peconic Bay, but you know, it's a Long Island Sound study.
Yep.
That's what it is, Long Island Sound Study. They are, you know, undertaking a program or a study to find out what, you know, the holdups are for, you know, people going ahead and wanting to have an innovative alternative system put in. You know, I mean, there are a lot of places, the majority of places don't have any programs at all to do this. But the problem of individual septic systems is widespread. Certainly on Long Island, I think, has the biggest concentration of private septic systems, maybe in the country. But the Connecticut has similar problems. And a lot of it, you know, affects the Long Island Sound watershed of which we are part of. And, you know, his outreach was to, you know, he recognized the eastern end of Long Island as a place that does have a seemingly robust system in place to try to get these IA systems going. So I kind of just gave him an overview of what we have been doing, you know, and how it evolved. I mean, we went from not knowing anything to knowing a little bit more. And, you know, I just laid out what the problems people would face and the reticence of doing it. You know, I mean, you know, does one system do anything? You know, I think, you know, that's an educational thing that, you know, you have to, you know, the long journey starts with the first step. You know, if you don't do anything, then you're just going to always get what you always got, or worse. You know, and just educating people to know that, you know, that's the right thing to do. You know, ultimately, maybe it'll come to coercing them into doing it. But at the moment, you know, he's, you know, essentially picking our brains to try and figure out, you know, how to approach, you know, this other vast area of people that, you know, should do something. You know, I said, well, Suffolk County, for its part, in its new legislation has, if I'm not mistaken, created as like a giant sewer district, you know, encompassing all these private septic systems. And so that makes things maybe a little more easy to finance stuff, and maybe that's how they're raising their, you know, grant amounts and whatnot.
Is this more recent than last December that you're talking about?
I think it's more, you know, Meg was talking about this at the Green Expo.
Yeah.
That essentially, that's what this is now. It's like a big sewer district, you know, and that's what's sort of opened up the ability to finance more of getting this stuff done. But anyway, I was telling him the other big reticence on people's part is just the hassle of doing it. You know, I said the actual process, you know, once they start digging, you know, it's probably a week and a half, maybe at most, you know, while that things are disrupted. But I think people are, you know, they fear, you know, undoing something that you know, what seems perfectly fine, you know, unless it's already bubbling up in their lawn. To just do it for, you know, preemptively is sometimes not something that people jump on, you know, because it's not in their forefront. So it was an interesting thing. What could help us going forward is this modeling stuff that this Long Island Sound study is doing, including Shelter Island. So I said we would be very interested in, you know, results that you guys get from this modeling, you know, to help us understand our, you know, how our things are working and or not working. So it was a good dialogue, and, you know, he was going to be back to me and, you know, with other questions, and, but, you know, it just, it kind of illustrates that this whole thing is a much broader thing than just here.
Right, sure.
So it was a good conversation. And I will keep you informed as he reaches out in the future. Just touching on commercial grants, I did, as per our discussion at the last meeting, I did reach out to Rachel Friedman, who spoke at our last meeting, to see if the Peconic Bay Estuary Partnership had any sense of what commercial, you know, entities do. You know, I mean, do they have any data specifically about commercial enterprises and what their contribution in a negative way is to water quality? And she really didn't. It was surprising, actually. You know, she did acknowledge that, you know, that it's just common sense. These entities should be treated, you know, with some priority, though she was not clear on how that would be. So there's no good answer coming from them is the point of that.
And I don't think with the additional Suffolk County money, they're not targeting businesses either.
It's not, as of now, there's still no commercial grant program anywhere that I know of. So that would be something for us just to contemplate. I mean, there's a, you know, as we said at the last meeting, there's no one size fits all thing. Everything is such a unique thing, as we even see with just the residential projects.
The unit itself is a plug and play, but everything
around
everything else
that is
associated with installation is.
No, and that is compounded, you know, or magnified in a commercial setting generally, because, you know, the commercial has a lot more constraints and oversight than residents, you know, so that all plays into it.
And the uniqueness here, where it's the businesses, for the most part, are not 12-month businesses. And even if a restaurant stays open, the volume coming out of it is a lot less in the winter than it is in the summer.
But when they're open, there's a lot of volume.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, but this is what, my point is, for them to afford it.
oh, yeah. I mean, well, you have a place like, Vine Street has a pretty consistent business. You know? I mean, like that would be one that might not be so affected negatively. But I mean, somehow, someday, something's going to have to be done about them.
Right.
You know, because, you know, they are concentrated more than a house, negatively affecting, you know, water quality, whether they're right on the water, you know, it's going into the bay, you know, or in Vine Street's case, it's going in my daughter's well. So, whatever. You know, it's important to really have, you know, this in our minds, at least, even if there's no disposition at the moment to actually do anything about it. But, you know, I think we should keep thinking. And
going back to the concept of water testing, all public operations have to be tested, and then they have to post their results, including.
they have to have them available, yes.
Our bathroom in this building. So from that, we could certainly draw at least maybe SWAC to do an analysis.
Well, I mean, in this testing thing, I imagine they're going to,
I don't know.
you know, at least request the tests. You know, I don't know if this building gets tested like the school gets tested probably every month, I would guess. You know, like that would be a requirement for any kind of food service operation. I know any restaurant has to, that has
So there's lots
a private well.
So we have data that's available that could influence or help assist our decision-making process here on what those results are.
Right.
Yeah,
Now, place,
And that's the extensive testing, that's the county testing, right? With the 100,
Yes.
150 items.
well, no, the actual monthly testing is really mainly for coliform in the wells. And that's done by the entity pays a local guy like Goldman or whoever
Yeah.
to test. If there seems to be an indicative of a problem, the county will then come and test.
And it's not like you're describing, the data is there, but it's not in, a dozen or 200 reports. It's a file where you'd say, I'd like to get the nitrates and the and dioxane for either public, private, or community wells. And I want it for the last 10 years. And, in 2 weeks later, you get this big honking email file that says, here's the information you wanted. So the last time I have requested it, it's probably almost 2 years now, maybe more. But it's there, available.
So you actually have that information?
I do, yes.
And what does it tell us?
It tells us that we have a lot of, what it told me 2 or 3 years ago, I don't remember. It did have some really major surprises. There were two, and never got an answer on it, how this could be, but there were two basically adjacent food service companies. And one was, the nitrate level was 2.5, 3, it was
Right.
really low. And the other one was like 12. And they were literally adjacent. There was a time difference in when tests were done, and the one that was closest to the big concentration of dogs that the woman had next to the Presbyterian church, that was the one that had been high and got resolved by the number that there were fewer dogs. So, and they provide that as to the company. You can get the data from private homes, but it's only the street. And that's the stuff, the information that John Cronin put together, and when he put the triangle together, that's basically was his resource. So if you have copious free time, I'll see if I can find out who I mailed away for.
So just to be clear, you cannot get that information from a private well, but you can from a restaurant?
You can get it from a private well, but not the location. It's the street. Say Smith Street, for example.
How about
For a public,
Commercial.
commercial property?
yes, you can.
Yes, it's posted. It's supposed to be
Okay.
posted.
I mean, that's like, right.
And it's the community and the community, private, and there's the third category of wells.
Semi-public,
Yeah,
there's public, there's semi-public, which is a restaurant. And
yeah, they call that,
it was a semi, something like that,
the characteristics of how you, slipped my mind.
Certainly there probably is some value in looking at it from that perspective, and seeing what these places, how their well tests are. Now, is that like Sunset Beach, is that on Suffolk County water or not? West Neck water? Yeah. So that would be a bad one. They're basically putting stuff into the bay, but.
was an indication, as I recall, that you could, if you squint a little bit, you could say, yeah, you know what? Year to year, the concentration is increasing.
Well, anyway, we should not let this slip off the stove completely.
I agree.
And I think it just requires some more thinking. Any updates on financial stuff that we need to?
The county sent the CPF checks and we didn't get them, so they're resending them. So
They didn't send it by the mail, did they?
No wonder you didn't get them.
So we're waiting to get some money in, so it's nothing new to report.
I have I'll ask it after the
I think we got August today, but June and July.
This a bit.
Interesting.
You had a question or not?
Well, it's tongue in cheek.
Oh.
Okay, we can wait.
I'll ask you at the.
Old business that we would like to talk about, or in failing that, new business?
I make a motion?
In failing that, Tui will be now making his favorite motion.
I make a motion, we adjourn?
Second, I guess?
So now we'll ask my question. Which supervisor